Hey there, happy coders, and welcome to another Happy Coding Let's Code, where I spend somewhere between 30 and 90 minutes, depending on the day, just kind of hanging out and coding something so that y'all can code along or use the baseline as your own starter project. So tonight, it's the middle of December. Everyone's kind of leaving work for the holidays, and so I'm feeling kind of Christmassy, and it's like California out here, so it's like it doesn't snow, but it's raining right now, which is about as close as we get. So I'm going to say grab yourself a vegan eggnog or a juice or a chocolate milk, and let's get started. So tonight I am thinking about doing a little Christmas tree sketch in P5. So if I look at like images of like a triangular Christmas tree, this is kind of like the geometric version of it, like what you might draw if you were a kid, or if you're like me and triangles and rectangles and circles are about the extent of your artistic ability. But I'm going to draw something like this or something like this, or maybe I'll add some ornaments or something, and then just kind of play around, depending on how much time I have and what we feel like doing. So that's kind of my goal. Okay, so let me get started by opening up the P5 editor. And this gives us our code editor where we have code on the left and we can hit the run button and we have our canvas on the right. So what I might do just to get started is draw a triangle. So I know I'm definitely going to draw a triangle, maybe like a square or a rectangle. So the triangle function is always kind of annoying, honestly, just because it has so many arguments. So let me go to the P5 reference and maybe look at the triangle reference. And yeah, look at all these numbers, man. It's so confusing. But I think that what it takes is like x, y, x, y, x, y. So it's really 3 points making up the 3 points of the triangle, which maybe that makes sense. So I'm going to maybe not worry about like colors or even really like sizes or really anything. I just want to get something on screen to start with. So I'm going to maybe start with the point in the upper left or on the top of the triangle. So where should that X be? I think for now I'm going to put it right in the middle of the screen. So that's going to be width times 0.5. And the Y is going to be, I don't know, maybe like 25% down the screen. So that's going to be like height times 0.25. So that's the first point. And I need to give it 2 more points. So that's the top point. Maybe I'll go down to, I could go down to the top, the bottom left or down to the bottom right. I don't know, let's go clockwise, I guess. So let's go down to the bottom right. So this is going to be what? Maybe like width times 0.75. Maybe it's like somewhere to the right of our top point. And then the height, let's do height times 0.75 as well. Put it like towards the bottom, but not completely at the bottom. So 75% of the way from the top to the bottom. And then my third and final point is in the lower left of the triangle. So I'm going to put that at like width times 0.25, maybe like 25% of the way to from the left edge. And then height is going to be the same as our last point, since those are the same like vertical coordinate. So let me run this, and okay, I see a triangle, and it's not quite a Christmas tree yet. I might make it green eventually. For example, I might add some ornaments. But before I do any of that, I think what I want to do is maybe define my own function. So the triangle function, like I said, is kind of obnoxious. It takes so many points and it's kind of hard to reason about. Like I use these kind of, round numbers just because they're kind of easier for me to think about. But eventually I think I want to maybe draw maybe more than one tree or maybe do an animation or something. So I want to put this logic into its own function so that I can think about it a little bit more easily. So I'm going to maybe have a function called like draw tree. And what should that take? It needs an X and a Y for sure. And then it needs, what does it need? So maybe a width and a height for the tree. So tree width and tree height, so I don't confuse it with the global width and height variables, tree height. And then I'm going to use these variables to draw my tree eventually, but for now, I'm just going to draw one triangle. So before, I was just drawing the triangle kind of in the middle of the screen using these kind of hard-coded points, but now I want them to be based on my parameters. So it's kind of up to me what these numbers mean. So like the X and Y, it's up to me if that means like the center of the triangle or like this corner or, you know, something entirely different. I think to make my life hopefully easier, I'm going to say that the XY of a tree is this top point. And it's up to you. You know, if that doesn't make sense, you can choose something else. You can say XY is actually the middle of the tree. And your math will be a little different, but the important thing is that it makes sense to you. So, you know, go with however you would represent a tree, like in your brain. Like, where would you start drawing a tree from? Maybe that's what your XY should be. I think I would start drawing it from the top. So I've got my first point, XY, and now I want to go down to this point, which is to the right and down of my XY. So I'm going to probably do like X plus and Y plus something. I don't quite know what yet. Y plus something, I don't know. So I think the X is going to be X plus, and again, it's up to me what these numbers mean. So is the tree width the whole width of the tree, or is the tree width maybe half the width of the tree? Totally up to us. But I think I want to say that width means the whole tree. So to get from this sort of center point to the right point, I need to go like half the width of the tree. So I'm going to say tree width times 0.5, and that'll give me this like X coordinate. So now I need to think about a similar thing for the Y coordinate for this point. So for now, I think what I'm going to do is say Y plus tree height. I might change that in a minute when I start drawing the bark of the tree, the trunk of the tree. But for now I'm going to say when you call the draw tree function, the height is the height of the triangle. And again, it's up to you, but I think that's what I'm going to choose. So these values are going to be very similar, but I think the X value of this is going to be on the other side. So it's going to be minus tree width times 0.5. And then the Y, I believe, is going to be the same. So Y plus tree height, because that's getting us from Y down here, which is Y plus tree height. And of course, I spelled it wrong. Okay, so maybe I'll format this code while I'm here. Sure. And next I need to call the function. So I'm going to call tree width, or draw tree, sorry. Draw tree, exactly how I am calling any other function. It's just a function I created, but JavaScript doesn't really care, doesn't really know that actually. But I need to give it parameters, just like I would call, you know, triangle and give it parameters, or background and give it a parameter. I need to give my function the parameters that I've defined here. So X and Y, I mean, my X is going to be width times 0.5. I think we've kind of figured that out. My Y, maybe I should have like saved this in a comment somewhere or something. I don't really remember what I used, but I think it was like height times 0.25, something like that. And my width and height are, I think before they were like width over 2, height over 2, probably, but maybe I'll just give these hard-coded numbers for now. So I'm going to maybe make it 100 pixels wide and 200 pixels tall, maybe. So let's run that and see what happens. My guess is that I did something wrong. I broke something because that was a lot of code to write without testing it. So I might have to go back and fix something, but that's okay. So I run it, and let me stare at this for a minute. I think that worked. I think this is what we would expect. I think I have a width of about 100 and a height of 200, so we can maybe test this out by changing these numbers. So I hope this gets a little shorter, and it does. And I hope this makes a really wide triangle, and it does. Okay, so I think that's working. Maybe I'll fiddle around with these numbers. So like maybe I'll make this 100. So I think this should go to the left, and it does. And I'll make this go down to the bottom, and it does. So, you know, I'm playing around with the parameters, not because I think that that's where I want to draw my tree, but just to confirm that my code works the way I expect it does with just a few different inputs. So like if I changed this and I expected the triangle to go down to the bottom and instead it went up here, then I would know that there was something weird with my code that I would want to look into and debug. But I think it's working actually, so let me change those back. Again, I should have written this down because I don't actually remember what they were, but I tend to use the same numbers all the time, so that's the only reason I can remember them off the top of my head. So I think this is probably 0.5. So that should put it kind of in the middle, and it does. Cool, cool, cool. It's kind of an optical illusion. It kind of looks taller than it is wide, but I think that's just an artifact of the geometry of the situation. I think if you measured from here to here and from here to here, I think it would be the same. I think. I also don't care. For my purposes, like if my tree is a little bit taller or a little bit wider, that's fine. But I now have a triangle. So to go from white triangle to tree, I need to do a couple of things. Importantly, I need to make it green, and I also need to draw the little like trunk part of it, the little whatever this thing's called, the bark, the core, I think trunk. So let me do that first maybe. So I know I'm going to maybe draw a rectangle, and I need to figure out the values of the parameters that I pass into the rectangle function based on these parameters. So what I might do is maybe I'll set up some variables. Yeah, let's do that. So maybe I'll create a variable called like const tree bottom, or what's like this part of the tree called, body tree of the tree. I don't know, let's just call it tree bottom, equals y plus. So I don't want it to be necessarily tree height, because that gives me, you know, from the whole bottom. But what I'm trying to do is like make room for the trunk part of the tree. So I don't want to draw my triangle all the way from y plus tree height, all the way from y to y plus tree height. I want it to draw like maybe, I don't know, 75% of the way down, and then the last 25% will be my trunk. So let's just do exactly that. I might change this number in a minute, but just to get something kind of working. And then this is my y value, so maybe I'll call it tree bottom y actually, and I'll use that here and here. Okay, yeah, and let's run that and just, you know, see what happens. I'm hoping, or I'm expecting, that my triangle gets just a little bit shorter, like 75% shorter actually, well 25% shorter. And I think it did. So now you can imagine that the last 25% will be taken up by my bark, my rectangle. So my rectangle will go from, okay, so there's an X and a Y. So my X, I want it to be centered, sort of in the center of the tree. And there's a couple ways to do that. One, I could look in the P5 reference. There's a function called, I think, rect mode or something. And by default, you specify an XY of the upper left coordinate of the rectangle, and then a width and a height of the rectangle. But there's other ways to do it. So I can specify the center of the rectangle, and that might make my life a little easier. But then I have to like calculate how far down it has to go, and nah, I don't feel like doing that. So I'm just going to do it manually, I think. But again, it's kind of up to personal preference. So if you think that looking into rect mode sounds interesting, like absolutely go for it. But I think for now, what I'm going to do is say like X minus tree width times some number times 0.1 for now. I will likely change this. So this gives me a little bit to the left of the center of my tree for my X value of my rectangle, and then my Y value is going to be the tree bottom Y, which we already calculated, and then a width and a height. So my width is going to be tree width times 0.2, so that it goes, so it's like, takes up the same distance to the left and to the right of it. It's symmetrical. That's the word I'm looking for. So it's symmetrical in the middle of the tree. And my height of my rectangle for the trunk part will be tree height times, I think, 0.25. It's going to be like the remainder of this number. So this is going to be the last section of the multiplier, if that makes sense. So I have a rectangle now, or I hope I do. So let's hit run, and I hope I see a rectangle sort of below the triangle. And I do. All right. Right now it looks kind of like an arrow, which I don't love. Maybe it'll look a little better once I start adding colors. But I think also maybe I'll make it a little shorter. Because, like, I don't know, that triangle part's the cool part. So maybe I'll up this quite a bit to like 0.9 and lower this to 0.1. And yeah, I mean, this is where we get into fiddling with parameters, which I'm trying not to do. Maybe that'll be my New Year's resolution in a couple weeks to not spend 45 minutes of every video just playing with parameters. But this is one of them that you could play with. So like, how much of the whole tree should the trunk take up? And I'll let you play with that. But for now, I'm just going to stick with these kind of round numbers. Okay, so next, a couple things I want to do. I want to add color, obviously, and I also want to maybe add, I don't know, maybe I'll make the border a little bigger, but I think maybe the border will depend on the color, actually. So what I will do is just color it. So I want to maybe make my tree part green, but I don't want it to be like bright green. So if I do RGB, this is going to be like neon green, and it's going to be gross. Like, that's fine. Hey, and if that's the color you want for your tree, I am not going to judge. We could lower it kind of ourselves and see if that, you know, looks good. But I think what I'm going to do is maybe go to, like, I don't know, Rgb Color Picker. And I'll find a site like this, and this will give me some like predefined colors that somebody else already came with. So like forest green web, those are both reasonable looking green colors. So forest green traditional, that's kind of funny. I don't know what the difference between forest green traditional is and forest green web is, but I don't know. Which one do you like? I think I might like this one a little bit better. So I want the RGB value here. Actually, some of these other values would work too, but I kind of prefer the RGB, like 3 argument approach. So let me do that, and that's annoying. Copied the whole thing, but hopefully this is like a more pleasing shade of green. And, you know, again, this is one of those things that you could play with forever. But it's green. I think I'm going to have to just be more accepting of my first tries. Although now I'm looking at some of this, like Harlequin, that's a cool color. 38230. Okay, let's try that actually. 38230. Let's try that. Looks a little lighter. Yeah, maybe. And maybe what I'll do is I'll use the that darker green as the stroke color. Maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, so like stroke width of like 4, maybe make it quite a bit thicker. Yep, nope. Okay, so apparently that's not the function name, which is fine. This is totally normal. Part of coding is like, I don't know, half remembering something, trying it out, and realizing that you're wrong. So it's what, like stroke width? Oh, stroke weight. Right. Okay. So stroke weight. Try to run that, and okay. I don't hate that. That's not the worst thing I've ever seen in my entire life. It's fine. I do need to change the color of my bark. So do I have like a wood brown, maybe? Rosewood? Wood brown? Rosewood? Maybe? Kind of red. All right, 101011. 101, 0, 11, and I'll test that out. And yeah, okay, the fill color is there, but I need a stroke color. And what I did with the tree part was make like my stroke darker. So let's try that. Maybe is there a different kind of brown that's maybe a little lighter? No, maybe just brown. Cool, sure. What's this? 150, 75. Okay. So what I actually want to do is have a fill of that number, which I already forgot. 150, 75, 150, 75, 0, and I'll make this the stroke color since it's darker. Sure. Yeah, okay, I don't hate it. One thing I think I do want to change is make the wood part kind of behind the tree, and I can do that by drawing it first. So now I draw my wood first, and then I draw my tree. So maybe I'll add a comment to make it a little easier to read, and I'll say trunk, and here I'll say tree. Yeah, let's run that and see if that looks any better. And yeah, I think I like that a lot better. So now you can kind of focus on the tree a little bit more. Cool. So let's think about this. My background, I definitely want to change that color. So what? This is RGB. So I'll do RGB maybe. Maybe I make it like dark blue. So like, what's 100 look like? Maybe. I don't know if that's too dark or too bright. Let's go up to 150 maybe. Whatever. Again, this is one of those things that you could play with forever. I'm going to try to resist the urge to play with parameters, but it's one of those parameters you can play with. So I like that. I think that's pretty good. I could maybe draw a ground. So like maybe I draw like a snowy ground with like a white rectangle or something, but I think it's okay. And I think maybe eventually what I'll do is I'll draw multiple trees. So let's think about this. So right now I've drawn a single tree, and I want to play with two other things. I want to play with the idea of maybe animation or maybe drawing more than one tree, and I also want to play with the idea of like ornaments or lights or something to like, you know, dress up the tree. So I'm debating which one I want to do first, and I think what I'll do is I'll do the ornaments first. So what I want to do is maybe draw some number, maybe 5 or so, I don't know, ornaments kind of randomly. So I could figure out, you know, I could draw them myself. I could figure out some XY values based on these parameters and draw some circles or something. But I think to make it a little bit more interesting or more, you know, fun, I think what I'll do is every time you draw a tree, every tree will have different ornaments. And so I'll use the random function in there somehow. Yeah, let's go with that. Let me think about this for a second. One of the best pieces of advice I've ever heard, which I've since repeated many times, is whenever you are in a situation where you have to think and talk at the same time, bring a drink with you so that whenever you need to stall, you can just kind of casually like take some time to take a drink. And really what you're doing is giving yourself time to think without talking, and it works pretty well. So yeah, if you ever have a job interview or something, or you want to start your own YouTube channel explaining stuff, handy tip. Anyway, what I think I want to do is do a search for like generate random point inside triangle. Yeah, generate point inside triangle. And there's one that I liked, which, you know, here's a bunch of math that I honestly don't really understand, and I maybe should take the time to read, but what I really want is some code. And again, like I want these videos to be a little bit of a window into like different things you could explore. So like I pointed out earlier, you can play with the different colors, you can play with, you know, exactly how big your triangle is, stuff like that. You can also play with what the heck is this math doing, and read more about it and do your own searches for, you know, generating points inside shapes and stuff. And, you know, if that's interesting to you, then this kind of coding exercise is a great way to sort of think about that stuff. But for me right now, I think what I'm going to do is just straight up steal some code. It might not be a best practice, but it's a practice. Anyway, so what I'm going to do is eventually I'm going to have like a draw ornament function. Draw light. I think ornament. Draw ornament function. It's going to take some values that I don't really know what they are yet. And oh my goodness, that's super messy, but that's okay. And what are these? So I think what this is 3 points. So I think when it says A of X and B of X and C of X, I think that's the X coordinate of 3 points. So it's 3 points of a triangle, and similar with AY, BY, CY, I think those are the Y coordinates of the 3 points. So, this might get annoying actually, because what it's going to need to take are the same things that a triangle function takes, because that's exactly what it is. So we're back to this this kind of messy, kind of annoying 6 whole arguments function, but now we are the ones doing it. So yeah, okay. So it's x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3. Sure. And here's what I want to do. I want to say like const, like ornament x, or just x, I guess. X equals, and then here's my math. Oh, and I need a R1. Do I need an R2? I do. Okay, and what are those? I think those are probably just random numbers. Let's check. R1 and R2 are random double from 0 to 1. Okay, so that's just the random function. Okay, so let's generate those actually. So const R1 equals, I think, just random. Const R2 equals random. So I think that the random function gives us a number between 0 and 1 if we don't give it any parameters. And let me just double check that. If no argument is given, returns random number from 0 up to 1. Okay, yeah. Okay. So we've got R1 and R2. Cool. And now I need A of X, which, all right, this is X1. This B of X is X2, I think. Also, while I'm here, let me maybe clean this up a little bit. Maybe at the plus sign, I'll do this. Yeah. And then C of X is X3. Yeah, okay, this is feeling okay. Const Y equals something very similar, where I do A of Y is Y1. And B of Y is Y2. And then C of Y is what? Y3, right. And then what do I want to do? I want to, for now, I'm just going to say like fill of red, RGB, and maybe a circle at X, Y, and then some number. I'll likely change this in a second. But what I want to do is maybe call draw ornament from the tree function. So now in my draw function, I'm going to draw a tree. And when I draw a tree, for now, I'm going to draw a single ornament at the end. And the parameters that I need are what? They're these numbers. They're the same numbers I fed into the triangle function. Now, do I want to move these into variables? Like tree left X. Nah. You could, but I think it's fine. Okay, so what I expect is I'm going to run this, and I expect a random ornament to be drawn inside the tree. Okay. I mean, I do see that. And And actually this is cool because it kind of proves that the point is always inside the triangle, but the problem here is that by default P5 is calling the draw function 60 times a second. So a couple things I could do. I could maybe just decrease my frame rate. So now I'm drawing one tree every second, and we can kind of stare at this for a minute. I'm going to want to change the stroke color of my ornament for sure. But it does seem to be drawing, like, you know, inside the triangle correctly. Cool. So I think what I want to do is maybe just call this a few times. So this is a little bit behind the scenes, and I always get a little bit annoyed when I show this stuff, but whatever. Right now what I'm doing is debating how I want to draw multiple ornaments. So I think I might end up putting this video in this section. So I'm not going to do anything more complicated than creating a function. We kind of got into animation, but I think I'm going to go back on that and take that out. But I'm not going to do anything more advanced down here. So there's a couple of different ways to do it, but one of the more obvious ways to do it is just to call it a few times. So I'm going to call draw ornament maybe 3 times just to see. And yeah, it'll still be animated a little bit, but I can change that in a second. So now I have 3 ornaments inside my tree. I think I might go up to 5 eventually, but one thing I want to do is maybe call like no stroke here, or yeah, whatever. Yeah, okay. I might try to make them like have a darker outline or something, but I think for now it's okay. Couple things I want to do. One, I don't think I want this animation. So maybe I'll call no loop here just to turn the animation off. And then what I'll do is a couple things. So I want to add more ornaments and I want to make them a random color. So this is my favorite line of code in the world. I'm going to just fill it with a random color. So random 255, random 255, random 255. So I'm filling the color. I'm picking a fill color of RGB, but those RGB values are random numbers. So the computer is picking the numbers for me. There's a big debate about how to create a random color. I like RGB. Other people like something called HSB, but this is my YouTube channel, Jeff. So now we get these randomly colored ornaments, and okay. I don't hate it. I think, you know, I still need more. There's a couple, you know, maybe potential issues that I think I honestly won't fix, but the one thing I will fix is I want to draw more of them. So if you're watching this video and you're like, if you're screaming at me that I should use a for loop here, you're right, I should. I agree with you. But like I said before, I want to keep this video kind of focused on some core concepts before I move on to for loops. So if you're writing code and you're familiar with for loops, go ahead and use one here. But for now, you can just call the draw ornament function 5 times in a row and ain't nobody gonna judge you. So there we go. There's our random tree. We are sort of at the mercy of random for where those ornaments show up and what color they are, but I personally like that. So what I end up doing often is I'll just hit this run button many times until I see one that I like, and then I'll like kind of cherry pick that as my favorites. Like this one's pretty good. Like I'll save this one as like the one I post. So it's okay that not all of them come out looking like perfect, or they don't look like how you would choose to draw them yourself, but that's okay because the computer can just generate 1,000 of these and you can pick the 3 favorite ones that you like. So okay, all right, I think I'm getting pretty close to doing everything that I would have liked to do. I think the last thing I'll do is kind of demonstrate kind of the power of what we just did. So we have this draw tree function, which right now is just drawing the tree in the same exact location every single time in the same width and height. But now I can call this draw tree function a bunch of times, similar to how I called the draw ornament function a bunch of times. I can do the same thing for draw tree. So maybe I'll draw another tree. Maybe this one goes like up here. So maybe this is going to be like width times 0.25. Maybe this is, maybe it's height times 0.1, maybe. Make it like close to the top. And then maybe this one's a little bit smaller. So maybe this is times 0.25 and maybe it's height times 0.25 as well. I tend to use the same kind of round numbers just because I can think about them a little easier. But if you want to play with like moving your trees to the left and right, that's cool. So there's my tree that's kind of smaller. And all right, I noticed one potential issue, and that's like the ornaments are always going to be the same size. And a couple ways I could do that. I could maybe base this off of, maybe I'll pass in a width value here. I could also randomize it. I kind of like that idea. So maybe I'll randomize it somewhere between like 10 and 20. 25 is a little bit too big. So now all of my ornaments will be randomly sized, and some of them will be quite a bit smaller. So let's try that. Ooh, I like that a lot. This one's kind of goofy looking, but I like the different sizes, I think. I think that's really cool. Yeah. Now you might think about drawing more than 5, but I think that looks pretty cool. And notice that like when I called this function here, I didn't have to care about the details. You know, I went back and changed one thing because I didn't like how it looked, but because I had put that logic into a function and because I had based all of my drawing off of the values I passed in, now I can call this function with whatever values I want, which is, you know, behind the scenes, that's exactly how all of these functions work. That's exactly how like the ellipse function works, or the circle function. They're all just doing running code based on the parameters that you pass into it. So the same ideas apply, whether it's a function you wrote or a function that came with p5 or from vanilla JavaScript or whatever. Anyway, let me draw one more tree, I think. Draw a tree. Maybe I'll put this just on the other side. So width times, maybe this is 0.75. Maybe the heights, let's make it the same, I guess. 0.1, and I'll make this one width times 0.25. Whoops, times 0.25. Height times 0.25 again. So now I have kind of 3 trees in like this little farm. That's cute. I'm trying to think if I draw one here. I think it'll overlap. Maybe that's okay though. So again, because I have this function, I can just call it a bunch of times now, or can call it in a loop if you get to loops. But what changes here? I think this is the only thing that changes. Oh, nope. Okay, so you know, this is up to personal artistic choice. If you want to draw a tree like that, you can. I kind of actually like it. So if I maybe get rid of the other one, that kind of looks okay. I actually don't hate that. Do I dare? Do I dare keep in this weird, awkward, like accidental tree? I was trying to make a tree go down here, which I actually think I would do by changing this number. And I need to change the other number. Right. So I need to change these numbers too. So, you know, I can draw a tree down there, but I actually really liked that. So let's go back to that. Yeah, I like that. Okay. I kind of want to make this tree a little bigger now. But all right, I'm going to stop because that's me getting into like playing with parameters, and you can do that. And it wouldn't be really interesting to watch me do it. Okay, so I think that's where I'm going to be done. I've got my trees. They've got ornaments on them. This one's a pretty good one. And maybe most importantly, now the code's in a state that if there's something that you would do differently, you can. So if you want to Make your trees a different color. Maybe they're not all green. Maybe they're, if we go back to the search, like there's some really interesting kind of patterns and colors. So like this one's really cool. I kind of want to do that, but that would be a different video, I think. Or you could play with the shapes. So like I did one single triangle per tree. You could do something like this where it's like 3 triangles, or more triangles, or like something like this is really cool where it's kind of just a bunch of triangles. You can make your tree look more realistic, maybe. Mine's kind of cartoony, but you could color it in with like maybe individual lines for the pine trees or something. You could, let's see, so it's like size and color of the tree is the one thing you can play with. You can play with the ornaments too. So like I just chose kind of arbitrary random colors. Maybe you want your ornaments to be shades of like red and white and silver and those kind of, classic colors. Or maybe you want to go the other direction and make them even weirder colors, and maybe constrain it so you don't get some of these like brown, colors and like green colors which kind of blend in. And there's a whole world of generating random colors that you can get into from here. The other thing you could play with is like animation. So if you're following along Happy Coding, you haven't quite gotten to animation yet, but you saw the basics of it when I forgot to call no loop earlier, where you draw a different thing every frame, and this is way too fast, so maybe I'll slow that down. Frame rate of like 10 maybe. So now it's more like lights maybe, and you can maybe play with that, but I think for my purposes I'm going to just not have it loop at all, and I'll stick with my kind of staticky trees. Other things you could play with, like you could add a star at the top maybe, or some tinsel, or what does your tree look like? My tree, I kind of want to show you, but my tree is like 12 inches tall and is bright orange and has a pumpkin at the bottom. It's been up since the middle of September because it doubles as my Halloween tree. But what does your tree look like? Maybe you add your family's ornaments or your personal ornaments or whatever, or maybe there's like presents underneath, or a train, or whatever your tree has, or whatever your dream tree or your imaginary tree has. So those are all different things that you could play with from here. And if you find this useful and you come up with your own animation or your own drawing or your own tree, I would love to hear from you. So please don't hesitate to either leave a comment down below in the YouTube comment section, or even better than that, come to happycoding.io and come here to our forum. And this is where I hang out. So if you post here, I will absolutely see it, and I will definitely reply to you. So I'd love to hear from you, and don't be a stranger. But for now, I think that this is pretty good. I've got my little Christmas tree farm, and I'm pretty happy with that. So I will say thanks so much for watching. Have a great night. Happy holidays. And as always, of course, happy coding.